Hey, what's going on, Brody?
How you doing, boss?
How you doing, big dog? Come on in, man. Man, Mitch.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Rico, what's going on, bro? How you doing, Mr. Suave?
So far, so good. Trying to be like you when I grow up.
Good to see you, man. Been a little minute, man. Been a little
It has
minute.
been a little minute, actually.
Bro, how's everything
It
going?
keeps us busy, you know?
That's it right there, bro.
It keeps us busy, bro.
I'm telling you. So what you up to now? You in school right now?
Yeah, I'm in school. I'm going for business administration.
Gotcha. Okay. What year?
What year? Graduate?
Yeah.
2020.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Now, how's the whole work situation going? Still working?
Yeah, still working.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Very good.
Not much affected by the virus.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
Bro, it's crazy.
For some people, it's not the story.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
It's wild, dude. It's just like if we had kind of like told ourselves, like our future selves, were to go back in time and tell them like our old selves where we were gonna be 7 months into the year, going into 8 months, yo, I would have been like, you're lying, bro. You're lying.
This okay sounds like it's out of a movie, man. This has definitely impacted a lot of things. Definitely.
Yeah, and what I'm curious to see, you know, what are the long-term effects going to be,
Yeah.
right? And I think another thing that's really interesting is, you know, kind of going along with the COVID situation, you know, we got to really kind of go into this whole sort of Black Lives Matter movement, right?
Yep.
And I think what's really interesting is that the reason why I wanted to have you on, Mitch, is because you were one of the people that really kind of supported me. You know, like when I put my video out, you know, and I felt like I needed to kind of voice my opinion. It's coming from my point of view, you know, I'll never understand, you know, what it's like to be a black man in America or a black woman, right?
Gotcha.
But, you know, in a situation like you guys are in, like we're in together, right? It takes people that don't look like the people that are being oppressed to say something, right? Because the African American community has been speaking about this stuff for years. Nothing has happened.
This is nothing new.
Nothing has happened. So clearly it takes...
It's a recurring situation.
Of course, right? And it's going to take other people to step up and to say something, right? And that's kind of where I was coming from, that whole thing. And my question for you is, you know, growing up, so you're a native Floridian, right?
Yeah. I wasn't born here, but I've been here for over 15 years.
Gotcha. So growing up in Florida, where it's a huge kind of melting pot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever like experience any kind of situations where you felt like you were maybe profiled or you were maybe oppressed or targeted in a certain way because of your skin color, you think?
I can recall one situation in a gas station. I walked into the gas station, you know, to buy some water, and the guy asked me to remove my backpack. I did as he asked. And he continued to watch me in the store.
And you were going to school, right?
Yeah, I was walking to school, so I needed something to drink. So he was watching me. I can see him watching me, you know. I don't mind it as long as I can just buy my water and get out, or whatever. I guess I was taking too long. You know, he said, hey, you guys come in here all the time and steal stuff in the store. Get out. If you're not buying anything, just get out. And I was like, oh, snap. I can promise you I'm not stealing it. You can check me if you want. I just wanted something to drink, man.
That's crazy.
That's probably the only time I've ever experienced something like that. I can't really say I've experienced oppression. I never have. I don't think so. I think I had fair opportunities in most of my life. I don't think my skin color has stopped me from getting a job or not being like a pick in an interview. Never experienced that. I think I'm very well spoken, so I think that has a lot to do with my success in interviews and getting jobs. So I don't really think I've ever been oppressed, or that's the only time I can tell you I've experienced racism. Other than that, no. But for some other people, that's not the case.
Right. And
it's not the case.
And that's something I want to kind of dive into more, right? Because you had said a key word there that I thought was really interesting. You said well-spoken.
Yes. Right?
And if you kind of look back, you know, if you look at the United States, you know, it was founded on racism and slavery. You know, the only true American person is a Native American.
Americans.
Everybody else is a transplant, right? So this whole country was founded on racism and slavery.
Exactly.
Right? And
it's history, you can't really argue with that.
Of course.
That is history.
Of course, and we'll kind of go into that later, but it's like this whole systemic principle of racism has come up since such a young age, you know, and it's come up from such an early time, and unfortunately, the cycle is going to continue, right? And I think that's part of the reason why it's almost like, as a community, you know, as a society, it seems like we've sort of hit, you know, a breach point, or almost like a pinnacle, right? Where it's like enough is enough, you know what I mean? And I think what's interesting is that I feel like you're kind of an anomaly in the sense of, you know, being well-spoken, because I feel like a lot of people growing up, they are products of their environment, right?
Yes.
So growing up, did you have kind of that family support system? Did you sort of have that backing to be in an environment that kind of promoted you being well spoken like that?
I would say yes, in a way, because I grew up in bad environments.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up, around poverty. I grew up with people committing crime just down the street. Like, that was a normal thing. But that didn't force me to become what my environment wanted me to become, because I also knew right from wrong. You can put me in a bad environment, because my mom always taught me, hey, stealing is wrong.
Right.
I was always taught killing another person was wrong. I don't think you have to be taught that. I think everyone should be born. I think everyone's born with a moral compass. You know what I mean? You know right from wrong. Like, you don't need to tell someone that ending another person's life is a wrong thing for no reason. That shouldn't be a controversial thing.
100%.
I don't know why we have different moral compass when it should all be the same. Like, right is right, wrong is wrong. You know what I mean? So I think the reason I am who I am today has a lot to do with a lot of people that I've met in my life. I grew up in predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods as well. Like, I moved a lot. I lived in a predominantly Hispanic community. They never treated me like I was a bad person. They never treated me like an outcast. I never felt uncomfortable in that neighborhood.
Right.
They would always hey, my mom made breakfast. She said, get your skinny butt in the house and eat some. You know what I mean?
Filtered right there. That's filtered.
Filtered. You know what I mean? So I grew up around white people as well, and they never made me feel bad. So I believe in good people and I believe in bad people. You know what I mean? I like the narrative. I don't really like the narrative of this is black versus white. I appreciate more of love versus hate, racist versus everybody. I love that narrative way more than I love black versus white, because it is separating. It's causing more division.
Exactly. And right now, in a time like this, we need to be unified, right?
Exactly.
And is it a coincidence that there's a lot of distraction tactics going on to try to take away from the Black Lives Matter movement?
I've seen that as well. I've seen people calling the Black Lives a terrorist organization. I'm like, huh?
Right. And then you look at peaceful protests was the origin. Once George Floyd passed away, this all started with peaceful protests around the world. Right?
Yes.
And then what do you start to see? You start to see Antifa, which I still don't even necessarily understand what that means.
I watched a couple videos on that too, and I don't know what it means. I'm not well versed in it. I don't know much about it to discuss it, but I know about it.
And that's the thing, right? It's the more you look, the less of a clear definition you get of what it is, which is interesting.
I know, yeah.
And then why is it that now you see, not now, when this whole thing first started, you see all these rioters, right?
Mm-hmm.
The peaceful protesters are going this way, and then the rioters are going the opposite direction, just breaking windows.
Yes.
Is that a coincidence?
That
I think not.
they're trying to push
a narrative. Exactly right. And it all goes back to what you just said, unification.
Yeah.
Right? They're trying to divide and conquer, right? Because I think what America is really, not necessarily America, but maybe the powers that have been providing the backing of the systemic racism and the oppression is unity. They're scared of that because we are stronger together than we ever will be apart.
I completely agree with that, man.
And
I completely agree with that.
And the proof is kind of in the pudding in a sense, right? Because we just had kind of talked about all these distraction tactics and all these things kind of going on to try to segment, try to divide, right? Talking about Black Lives Matter, and then you get other people on the side talking about all lives matter.
A rebuttal. I feel like that is pretty much just a rebuttal. To me, someone saying Black Lives Matter, I don't know. I also don't know why that's a controversial statement. Black Lives Matter does not mean that your life doesn't matter. Your life very much matters to you. White lives do matter. All lives do matter. I don't need to rebuttal those. So I don't understand why people feel the need to rebuttal Black Lives Matter. I don't have any, I don't feel why. I would never rebuttal all lives matter, because all lives do matter. You know what I mean? Hispanic lives matter. White lives matter, Black lives matter. But when you say Black lives matters, they rebuttal it. That's what it feels like. Because if you agree with it, why is there a need? Why do you feel the need to rebuttal it? Why does it offend you? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I feel like talking about it is a good thing. Because before we judge someone, we should always understand first. We should always like communicate, talk. That is very important. And educate ourselves and have debates, discussions, whatever you want to call it. I think that is very important.
Dude, and then that's so cool too, because that's the whole reason why we're here, right?
Yeah.
We're just trying to prompt other people to sit down and have a discussion, right? And to educate each other, right? And to talk about things that might be on somebody's mind, and to talk about things that might confuse people, right?
I agree.
And I think one thing we'll kind of go back to is that whole rebuttal situation, right?
Yes.
I think that's so interesting because I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of perspective of the individual who's saying that, right? And what I mean by that is that let's look at animals in the world, right?
Yes.
There's animals that aren't protected, there's animals that are protected, there's animals that are endangered, right? You don't hear people talking about all animal lives matter when it's an endangered species, right? That's getting the protection.
I get what you mean.
Like the rhinos, right? And stuff like that. That's no different in this situation. Why is it that somebody needs to have a rebuttal for a Black Lives Matter thing? Because right now, that is what matters. That is the target point, that is the focal point. And like you had said, every life matters. I care about your life as much as I care about my life, and Hispanic's life, an Asian person's life. It's all in the same to me. But right now, the Black Lives Matter more. That's the focus point.
Yes,
right? And I think it's just, there's such a lack of perspective there.
And I feel what makes me feel like it's more of a dismissive tactic saying all lives matter. Because those same people say blue lives matter, right? And if I were to say firefighter lives matter, they'd be like, yeah, that's what we're focused on, the cops' lives that are in danger right now. Okay, why can't you understand this then? Same concept. Why is it hard for you to understand that? I would love that to be explained to me.
Right.
I would love everyone's viewpoints to be explained to me.
And that's the thing too, I'm excited, because I think this is going to get a lot of discussion points out, and I think one of the things that you had hit on there was why is it a discussion, right? That, when we say Black Lives Matter,
yeah,
right, it turns into something completely, it divulges completely off the topic.
Thing.
It's a controversial thing, right? And maybe I'm taking in a little bit of a different perspective, but for me, being a white man, and being close to a lot of African American people, Hispanic people, just hanging out with the boys, it's like, I think for a lot of people it makes them uncomfortable. It makes them uncomfortable to say that, because then they have to stand on their shield. And then that's going to force them to get educated. And then what they believe to be the societal norm is going to break. Because the unfortunate reality of the situation is that growing up, at least for myself, being a white male, growing up in Connecticut, where the only reason I ever met a black individual was because I went to private school and we recruited kids for basketball from the inner cities in New York and things like that, right? I can't recall the time where I saw somebody of color in the state of Connecticut, my town where I was from, my entire life up until I came down here, right? And I think the thing about it is that, like I had said, when you make a statement like that, which is a big thing to do, it then forces you to stand on your shield, right? And it forces you to get educated, and I think it's going to change a lot of the ways people think, and it's going to make them uncomfortable. And human nature is to always go away from the uncomfortable situation and go to the comfortable situation. All lives matter. Because then that doesn't force them to get educated. That doesn't force them to have conversations. That doesn't force them to address potential things that are going on inside themselves that they've been suppressing, that they know is there, they just try to hide it, right?
Yeah.
But maybe not though, maybe not. That's just that was a viewpoint that I was sort of thinking, but.
I appreciate that you, the person who wasn't raised around like African Americans or black, but that didn't cause you to be racist. Because you've never met like a black person. I'm pretty sure that you were raised in a good family. I would assume. I can assume your parents also not racist because you weren't taught that. You weren't taught that because obviously you weren't. Because even though you wasn't familiar with African Americans, it wasn't a group of people you interacted with very commonly as you grew up. It didn't cause you to hate African Americans or be racist because you weren't taught that. And I feel like a lot of people are taught that.
For sure. And I'll say this too, to kind of double down on that. I've also met my fair share of people, as I'm sure you have, that are extremely racist. Extremely racist. And there's some people that hide it, and some people that don't. And I've met my fair share of people that don't even try to hide it. They'll just let it fly. And it's alarming. It's alarming to me because similar to you, we were never taught that. We were never trained. We were trained to think the opposite direction. Every person, regardless of what they look like, regardless of how they act, regardless of their financial background, where they came from, we're all the same person. We are all of equal. And to just see that kind of makes me think of just how far we still have to go.
I agree. I feel like it's a long road. Because sometimes to me it feels like, even though it gets better, because obviously you'll see the protests, the Black Lives Matter protests, and you'll see a large group of white people supporting it. I appreciate that so much. I love that so much. Because then it just proves to me more. It's not about white versus black. It's just about good versus bad.
Right. And that's the name of the game, good versus bad.
I would
good
like
versus bad. And let's kind of dive into that further. Let's kind of go into the whole George Floyd situation. Let's kind of talk about, at least in terms of our time on Earth. This has really been, at least for us, a defining moment. In terms of a racial movement to try to open up space for the African American community to function similar to other races, right?
Yeah.
And this whole George Floyd situation, when you first saw the video, right?
Yeah.
When you first saw that video, what was your initial impression? What was your initial reaction to it? Because I know mine was interesting.
Yeah, there's two videos that shows two different viewpoints, but both are bad. Both are bad, severely bad. The first one I saw, you could see that one cop on his neck. And I'm like, yo, okay, I get that you're trying to restrain this guy, but your knee on his neck, you don't need to be the most intelligent person on the planet to realize that's probably not good to do that.
And for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you look at the video, it almost looks like the dude has a smirk on his face.
It looks like a complete disregard for human life, to me. And in the second video, outraged me even more, because, okay, you're trying to restrain the guy. He's cuffed, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Hands behind his back.
Behind his back. There are other cops on him, on his
on his legs, and his hips.
Okay, so I don't understand why you felt the need to feel safe by putting your knees on his neck, or to feel like, okay, this guy needs to be restrained.
Where was he gonna go?
Your knees. Where was he gonna go?
Where was he gonna go?
You know what I mean? Who was he gonna harm? You know what I mean? So that makes me just feel like that was just a complete disregard for human life.
100% agree. And to even double down on that, it gives me chills down my spine hearing the verbiage and the terminology that George Floyd was using as he was literally dying in front of our eyes.
For life.
Crying for his dead mother.
Yes.
That's completely different.
That man knew he felt like he was in pain and he was going to die.
Completely different. And that's what's so scary to me. It's this officer has his knee on this man's neck. And let's kind of divulge a little bit. Me personally, I've heard a lot of different things about this whole situation. They're talking about, he's been to prison, X, Y, Z, he's done this, that, such, and the other. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
It does not. Because it feels like they're saying, okay, the guys did this and that, he deserved that to happen. Why does what he did in the past have to do with why he died now?
Right. And my thing is
how is that justified?
And put yourself in that person's shoes, right? That person who said, he did this, that, such, and the other, so that's exactly what should have happened. How would you feel if that was you? Or your son or your daughter? Yeah. How would you feel? Would you want that then? Probably not.
That's crazy.
And that's part of the problem. There's this, again, perspective. People only choose to see what they want to see. They never want the full picture. And again, I think that all comes back to this systemic foundation of what America's built on.
Agreed.
And again, it's let's kind of go into that a little bit more. I think what's even more haunting, or equally as haunting, I would say, is the fact that there was 3 other officers there, correct?
Yes.
plus the gentleman that had his knee on his neck,
Yeah.
on George Floyd's neck. Why did those 3 officers not think one time in the 8 minutes and 46 seconds where that where that officer was killing George Floyd to think, oh, maybe I should get him off him. He's pleading for his dead mother that isn't even alive. He said, I can't breathe more times than I can count. Maybe I should try to do something and stop that situation. But that never happened.
Yes.
That's alarming. That is alarming to me.
What's even more alarming is because this it just makes it look even like a racial thing. Because have you heard of the guy that went into the church and shot people?
That was recent, right?
Yeah. He killed multiple people, right? The cops got him peacefully. Do you know they even took him to Burger King?
What was his skin color?
White. And that is very unfortunate that that's the case. Because then it looks like, you know what I mean?
Let's dive deeper. Let's look at the Parkland situation, because that hits close to home for us. You know, me being a transplant from Connecticut, but being down here for 5 years in this whole Parkland situation. I don't know the number of how many people that kid killed. But do you think it's a coincidence that he was captured peacefully? He, as far as I understand, he barely even got a strong sentence, and his skin color is white.
Yeah. That's obviously, his life matters, you know what I mean? his life obviously matters. And after killing like a lot of people for no reason, not that there's a really good reason to kill someone, you know what I mean?
Never.
The man was armed and considered dangerous.
With an assault rifle.
Yeah. So I don't see how those cops were not threatened. They didn't feel threatened. Because obviously not, because they got him peacefully and got him a burger. That's crazy, dude. That's crazy. And a man over a fake $20 bill lost his life. Is it a coincidence that his skin color happens to be black? Is that a coincidence? You know what I mean?
But people can see it.
Like, how many coincidences does it take for you to realize, okay, there's a problem? It's
Right.
no longer a coincidence.
How many coincidences does it take to make you understand that this is a trend?
Exactly.
And trends don't happen by chance.
Exactly.
Like you had said, how many times? I have no idea.
How many times?
I have no idea, and that's, I would say that's something that I think that's why it's so important for the Black Lives Matter movement and for us, you know, not only as individuals but as a community, to keep coming together and keep trying to push the envelope. Because the thing about it is that it's come too far. The movement has come too far to lose steam now. It's come too far, and I've been reading that there's been movements, there's been peaceful protests every single day in New York City, which is beautiful, and I wish there was more of them. And you know, another thing which is kind of interesting with this whole protest situation, you know, did it infuriate you at all when, and granted, there were some situations that were pretty egregious, right? And those egregious situations, if you look at the demographic of those videos, most of the people look like me.
Yeah. And I don't think that doesn't make me judge white people.
No,
I don't judge
no.
white people because of that. If I see a video of, you know, a large group of white people doing something wrong, I'm not going to stick that on the entire white community.
Right.
Those are just some bad people.
Exactly.
I don't need to put bad white people in front of that. Those are just bad people. There's no need for me to add a color to that.
Exactly, and I think something that, again, which is not a coincidence, is the peaceful protesters were blatantly peaceful. There was no questions, right? The peaceful protesters, they were blocking traffic. Okay, suck it up. Deal with it, bro. Like, deal with it. You're that mad that your trip got delayed 20 minutes because people are standing in the street doing something that they care about because it affects them directly. Just because it doesn't affect you directly doesn't mean it's less important.
You know what I wish? I wish that energy was put onto an innocent man being killed. I wish that same energy were being outraged. Like, why are you stopping my traffic? I have places to be. This is ridiculous. I wish that energy, that same energy, was put into an innocent man's life being taken.
Exactly.
I wouldn't say innocent. I would say undeservingly. You know what I mean? And also feel like why does this outrage you more than a man losing his life over a
fake $20 bill?
You think his life is worth a fake $20 bill?
And it's possible he didn't even know that was fake.
Yeah,
it's possible.
That is very possible as well. I agree. I've actually been given a fake bill.
At me as well.
And I look on the back of like the bill, and I can see some things on it that's, this. I don't usually see this on a $10 bill. It's obviously a fake $10 bill. That actually does happen. He probably didn't realize it. Maybe if they arrested him peacefully, could have told his side of the story and could have been an understanding in that situation.
Right. And what's so confusing to me is I just don't understand why it took that amount of force. The man was down.
Cuffed.
You had his legs secured, his hands behind his back. He's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. Trust me. Why did you feel so, I won't put air quotes, why did you feel so threatened that you had to take those kinds of measures and sustain them for 8 minutes and 46 seconds to kill a man over something he might not have even known had happened? Like, I don't know, man.
I don't know either. Those guys got their bell posted,
and that's the other thing too, which is interesting. How
curious.
Something like a situation like that can occur. A gentleman get taken to prison, maybe 1 or 2 days. I'm estimating, I don't know the exact number, but it's probably pretty quick. 1 to 2, 3 days, they were out on bail. And I don't know. Have you seen? I saw this post. I think it was on Facebook. It was of a white man and a black man, right?
Yes.
They were both the same age. You might have seen this. They're both the same age. They committed the same crime. They had the same amount of points. I guess you get points when you commit a crime or something like that. I guess it's similar to like a driver's license in a sense. They had the same amount of points, 162. The white kid got, I think it was 5 years. The black kid got 24 or 25 years in prison. But everything was identical.
Except for the sentence.
Except for the sentence.
But why?
Sentence and skin color.
But why?
Those are the only two things that were different.
You know what I mean?
Sentence and skin color.
Coincidence.
Again, coincidence?
No, I'm not so sure anymore, you know what I mean?
And that's the thing too, in a sense, I'm appreciative, that, I'm very appreciative that this whole thing has really kind of bubbled up to a tipping point, because not only is it gratifying to see, my brothers and sisters, starting to shine the light on, it reminds me of a situation like, when cockroaches like to hang out in the dark, right? So you turn the lights on, they scatter, they all run away.
Yeah. I feel that.
I feel like right now, we have the spotlight and we're just turning it on all this stuff that's been around for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years. Stuff that Martin Luther King Jr. was fighting for, Malcolm X was fighting for.
Civil rights was a controversial statement, bro.
Right? And why is it that there's similarities that you could pull from then to now? Still.
Not much change.
But in the Declaration of Independence, in the Constitution, it says
all men are created
equal.
All men are created equal.
So they're not created equal. And
that seems to be that way.
And that's my whole point. Systemic.
I agree. This is a system. It's unfortunate.
Hey, what's going on, guys? If you're seeing this video, that means you made it to the end of the video I just posted, so congratulations. Because now you get to see me looking like this. So you're gonna see a couple boxes in a little circle. So over here, this is gonna be a playlist with a whole bunch of other videos that I posted. If you like what you saw so far from the sit down, you'll be able to keep up with everything right there. Right here is gonna be the video to my previous video. And then right here, click that circle there. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that bell icon to make sure you get all the updates whenever I come out with some new content. I appreciate the support. Let's keep the train going. Here we go.